Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's topic, 2 years of discovery in Bhutan, which will be presented by two of our amazing expedition leaders, Payal and Harsha. My name is Sunny Vanderstar, and I am happy to be your host today. Payal and Harsha, thank you so much for being here. Let's get started.
Thank you, Sunny. As always, thank you and welcome everyone. My name is Payal.
And my name is Harsha.
And we are both expedition leaders with Natural Habitat, and we've been guiding for a few years now, and we guide in different countries in South Asia. Today with this presentation, we are bringing to you an account of our lives as we lived in this land of the dragon for 2 years. So in 2014, just a second, I'm struggling with, So in 2014, almost exactly a month after we got married, almost on a very short notice, life brought us from our respective cities. So I hail from Mumbai, that's where I was based out of.
And I'm from Bangalore, the IT capital of India.
Both large bustling cities in India. And from there, we almost like time travel, we got transported to the capital city of Bhutan, that's Thimphu. Suddenly being transported to Thimphu, this beautiful, in this beautiful mountainous country, was a whole new world that opened up to us. I mean, even though we are just neighboring countries, right? Just south of Bhutan is India. Bhutan was a place like we had never ever seen before. And here we were. And there was so much that was going to be in store for us. We were quite busy there working in Bhutan, but just living in a place, I think you end up learning so much without actually, learning about it. We didn't even realize how much we were learning about the country while living there for 2 years until we actually came back and thought about it or, started guiding for Nat Hab in these countries. So today we are going to present to you bits and pieces or highlights of our stay in the country through a very narrow, limited lens of two individuals who spent some time there living, day to day with the people of the country.
Yeah. So from the city in India, we went to another city in Bhutan, that is the Thimphu, which is the capital of Bhutan. And though we call it capital, we lived in such a place with a lot of bird life and greenery everywhere. And we were woken up every day by these beautiful birds, which became our new neighbors, where most time of the year we could hear them sing, and some seasons we could hear them call throughout the day, yeah, like the nutcracker or a beautiful bird called Rufus Sibia. Not only that, we were surprised to see this handsome black eagle coming in front of our house. This is photographed just outside our window, gliding. Imagine this big bird. Where we come from, we used to struggle many times to look at this bird, and this bird used to visit in front of the house because our house was in the valley. Not just that, just a walking distance, there's this beautiful park called Taking Reserve, where we find this very interesting looking mammal. They were our neighbors too. This is the national animal of Bhutan, Takin, and for when we go for a walk, we used to see them often from the road above. And when people do a Nat Hab trip, this is the place we take them, one of the places we take them to view these beautiful animals.
Yeah, it was a lovely house and one of our most favorite things to wake up to in the mornings was the view out of a window. I mean, we could see a small road coming down the hill, and the world's cutest children would be walking down that road first thing in the morning, dressed in their school uniforms. What you see here is a little school boy dressed in the national dress called the Go. And this is also their uniform at school. So all schools in Bhutan, they wear the national dress as their uniform. There are different colors for each school though. And even more endearing would be on cold winter mornings. Okay, so it would be so cold and they'd still be wearing this. Of course, the socks or the thermals went all the way up and they weren't exposed legs like these. But it would still be so cold that they would put one of their hands, their right hand would go into the fold of their kira. It would be hanging there, keeping it warm, while the other hand dangled down with their tiffin lunchbox. Yeah, it was just something we really looked forward to waking up. So beautiful house. Other than that, Bhutan offers you the luxury of really fresh, 100% organic food. And this was such a great thing to have, living in a new place. And there is this wonderful weekend farmers market. So during weekends, people from all the villages around Thimphu, the city where we were living, would come in to sell their wares. And of course, at this point, how can we not speak about the chilies? Chilies are such a big part. You can see right there in the center. And trust me, that's only one kind of chili. You can have red, you can have green, you can have very spicy, you can have less spicy. Just all kinds of chilies would be used in the Bhutanese cuisine. And another picture that you can see, the white sort of bread-like things are actually cheese, which is also a very big favorite among Bhutanese. And we totally took to it. We started eating chili cheese, which is, again, it's called the national dish of the country. And it's a big favorite among locals. And we really took to it and ate lots of it. So it was all just fantastic. Our initial few days, lovely wild neighbors, lovely views from home, great food available to eat. It was all wonderful. We were just starting out. And something at that time that you feel in a country like Bhutan, especially for people like us, coming from India, which is such a diverse country, there is sort of a feeling of homogeneity, when you're living in the country and starting to learn about it. Something about it all feels very same, very plain. Though I must say at this point that it's all very rich, very rich culture, very rich history, very interesting religion and stories behind it. But still, it seems equal, very homogeneous. And coming from India, like I said, it was hard not to notice it. Say religion, most people are Buddhist. Let's speak about clothing. Everyone wears the national dress, that's the Go and the Kira. It is so different in India. Every 100 kilometers you go, or even within a big city, a capital city, you hear so many languages or see so many different kind of clothing or food. And that added a sort of bland flavor to our mind. And speaking of clothing, Harsha and I also tried it out, and here I'll just take a moment to tell you, we've labeled this here so that y'all can read it also. So the national dress of men, it's called Go, and the women, what they wear, the wraparound skirt with the blouse, is called the Kira. So clothes, like I said, felt same, and the same went even for architecture. Let us give you an example. So there are various kinds of buildings in Thimphu, right? So you have modern buildings like the one you see to your left, or you have really old traditional buildings, or even large historical fortresses that we call zongs. Now, all of this, if you see these very, very different types of buildings and the structures, but there is a similarity in them, whether you look at how the window panes are designed or the paintings on the woodwork, it's all very similar. And it's similar because there is a rule in the country. We learned that there are certain parameters that one has to follow when they build a building, no matter what kind of building it is. And we were just beginning to get used to this homogeneity when we learned that, hey, wait a minute, there is something we are missing completely. And we are going to share that with you. But before that, we'll just take you back in history a little bit.
The history is not so long back, actually, what we're going to talk now, though they have centuries old of history. So like any other tourist visiting, if they visit for a short time, this is what they feel at the end of the trip if they extend their stay. And much later they realize there's uniformity. Otherwise, it's not easy to spot. So it was interesting because Bhutan was not opened to outside world for a long time. And in fact, television came in 1999, followed by in 2000 internet. Imagine the country which had very, very less exposure to the outside world. Uh, Suddenly in 1999 and 2000, they are with the bang, they're exposed to television and internet. The slow, gradual process was not there. They just started to globalize very quickly. So with this, we started to notice two parallel eras. One could get a sense like going down a memory lane with the globalization and also a strong hold of tradition. So our guide, who is our good friend now, he was showing this mall, and he said there's an interesting story. Um, this was one of the first mall in the city, in the country, and he said he was outside in a queue to enter. I said, "Wow, that must be a lot of shopping. You wanted to go?" He said, "No, this was the first place in the country where there was an escalator. So everybody were entering the mall to ride the escalator." So this kind of things happened in many countries when first time, but we coming from India, we missed it because it had become very popular. But just a few years back, escalator was new for them, and everybody was going into this mall to ride the escalator, not for shopping.
Yeah, it was amazing to see while during our stay there how step by step, modernization or globalization was slowly in front of our eyes, influencing the country and its people. And during that time, of course, as we spent more and more time, we learned more about the life of people of Bhutan. Living there gave us some amazing insights. And one of the biggest surprises for us while living there, we learned that the most important occasion in the life of a Bhutanese person is his or her death. It's not birthdays, it's not weddings, but it's the death of a person. Because of their belief in reincarnation, death is considered a gateway into a new life. And people in Bhutan have elaborate rituals around a death of a person. There are small differences amongst communities around the country, but overall, from what we learned was that after the death of a person, there is 49 days of mourning. And in these 49 days, there are lots of different elaborate rituals and traditions that are performed. What you see here in front of you in the photograph are those white flags, vertical flags lined along the slope of the hill. This is one of the many rituals that are performed after the death of a person. The dead are cremated in Bhutan, and these flags, for example, and other rituals around the death are sort of the intention is to make the transition from one life to another as smooth as possible, and to hope that the person gets a wonderful next life. it was amazing for us to see that our friends, who experienced a death in their families, it's not just the family, but the entire community, and also the religious community, like the monks or the lamas of the area. Everybody would get involved in these 49 days. This is the time, in India, when usually, generically speaking, a person saves up money for their child's wedding, especially a daughter's wedding. But in Bhutan, your biggest expense is actually a death in the family, not a wedding in the family. In fact, weddings or birthdays are not at all a big deal. Only, except of course, wedding of in the royal family is something that is celebrated by the whole country in that sense. But within local people, there is not even a proper like a wedding like how we see it or understand it. A young couple just meets each other and starts living together, and that's a marriage.
Yeah, no birthday celebration.
Yeah, no birthday celebrations either. Only nowadays you see among the elite or people who've lived outside have some like a party for a wedding or something like that. That to us was a really big surprise. Anyway, having spoken of death in Bhutan, the people of Bhutan also know how to enjoy life. Picnics. They absolutely love picnics. That's definitely the sense that we got. One weekend, one holiday, and you'll see groups of friends and family, dressed up and about with their baskets of food and goodies. And there's ample space, right, in that city in the country to sort of go out to scenic locations and have a picnic. And speaking of holidays, there are lots of them. So let me just show you. Okay, so here in front of you, we have two calendars, one of Bhutan and one of USA, just one that you probably identify with more. And if you look at all these, holidays written in the red on the Bhutanese calendar, and if you see the ones in the US calendar, you'll see that maybe there's not such a big difference, maybe a few more holidays in Bhutan. But trust me, this is not it. These are just national holidays. So the country of Bhutan is divided into districts. And within districts, you have capital towns and cities and big and small villages and all the rest of it. Each valley will have their own special annual celebrations, or certain different communities will have their own, sacred days, and all those are holidays. Now, I had gone to Bhutan on a job. I had a job there, to manage sort of ground handling of a travel company. In fact, the same company that helps Nat Hab with their trip. And just all of a sudden, I would see my colleagues are missing on one fine day, and that's because I would have completely missed that there's yet another holiday that has come up, and I'm the only one attending office that day. So that's how it was. The Bhutanese people do really know, do have a lot of holidays, and they really do know how to enjoy them.
Yeah. Yeah, they're actually very chilled out, laid back, simple living.
Yeah.
And what you see here is their local drink, alcoholic drink called Ara, A-R-A, and it's made from rice. Every house, if you visit as a guest, traditionally they would offer it, and it's pretty smooth, and it's a acquired taste too. But apart from that, uh, they like their drinks, and we also love because one of the reasons we like them because the names given all wildlife. It could be a raven or a red panda beer or a takin wine or a Bhutan glory. It's a beer which is named after a butterfly. So many of the drinks were named after wildlife. So we really enjoyed it.
Yeah. As much as they love their alcohol, they also love their music. Be it traditional music, they have lots of different instruments, or be it now with the modern generation, more global music. I've seen our friends and colleagues being into Hindi music, that's music from India. We've seen them enjoying Korean music, English music, and of course their own Bhutanese music. And even the country encourages it. In fact, one very interesting thing that we learned when we were in the country was, say, youth who were affected by, say, drug addiction or any mental health issue, they were diverted towards different art forms, including music, which I thought was just so wonderful. What a wonderful way of dealing with, problems with youth in the country. And of course, you see, an effect of that even in their nightlife. They love their pubs, and in a typical karaoke pub, you would hear really, really nice singing. They are very good singers. In fact, when we speak of singing, I can never forget a lady called Eshe, who used to help us at home, and her house was exactly behind us, so from our bedroom window, you could actually see her house behind us. And on certain cold, quiet winter days, she and her husband would sing at home. And that soulful, deep voice and hearing those Bhutanese songs, I'd really, really never forget. It was one of the most memorable experiences of living in Bhutan. With this picture, I would also like to point out one more thing. To your right-hand side corner, you will see a picture. That is the photograph of the king of Bhutan. And this is again something one will notice. And for that, you don't really have to live in country. When you visit us in Bhutan, you will see that everywhere. Whether it's the cab you're driving in, or visiting someone's home, or a restaurant, or a karaoke pub, or even on clothing, on the folds of their overcoat, when they wear a badge or a brooch, it will have a picture of the king or the king and the queen or the previous king, and this is just everywhere, and you can't miss the fact that they really, really so love the leader of the country. Here in this picture, what you see is on the left, you have the previous king, and on the right, you have the current king, His Highness Jigme Council. And these are really long names and quite difficult for us to say. And for the ease of everyone, I think it's great that in Bhutan, they call their kings by even number. So the current king's father, the previous king, he's known as K4, and the current king is known as K5. So henceforth, I will refer to them like that. It'll just be easier. And for us at that time, when we went to the country and started living that, it was just so refreshing to see a country that loved their leader so much. Especially at that time, with like currently how we see in many countries, where there is a lot of polarization or hatred or towards leaders, or even fighting for power for the top seat. It was so refreshing to come to Bhutan at this point. So the K4, who you see here to your left, was the king who introduced democracy. He stepped down from power, he retired. It's the first time I think a king must have retired and not waited until death for an heir to come in. He said, okay, I'm 68. I've reached a retirement age and I must step down. It's time for the youth to take over. So not only did he step down and his son became the new king, but also at that time he introduced democracy. So at this moment in time, Bhutan has three main entities that are running the country. So one is the chief abbot, who is the head of religion. Then you have the king, who is the political head. And other than that, just administrative day-to-day running of the country is by a prime minister and his team of cabinet ministers, who are elected. So it was really very refreshing for us to see how the country was run. Anyway, enough about the political history. Let's come back to the fun of it.
Bhutanese love archery. Archery is their national sport and favorite pastime. And any holidays or weekends, any big open space, you will see men gathering and playing archery. So this archery is very interesting. Traditionally, it's made with a bamboo, and the distance to the target where you shoot your archery, the target is 476 feet.
Yeah.
It's really, really far away. And there are two teams on either side, and at each team end, there's a target. And target is very small, and they play for fun. And once they try to attempt to shoot the arrow to the target, if the target is missed, on the other side, the opposite team will shout and make fun of the person who missed. However, if the person hits the target, then something interesting happens. The same opposite team who made fun, they do something else. Uh, I hope you can all watch this video. So here, the target is here, and just a minute back, the same group of people had made fun of the opposition because they missed the target. But now what you saw was celebration and respect to the person who hit the target. So they really, really enjoy their archery. And archery, it's their old sport, but a new and another popular sport is the soccer or the football. And with the youth of the country, they really love this game, and it's very popular. Everybody likes to play, and like you see here, on one of our trips, we saw young monks playing the football, and it was a sight to see. Watch that.
Absolutely. Coming to another big highlight of being in the country are their festivals. So like I said, Bhutan is divided into various districts. Each district has a capital city or a town, and each of these have their own fortresses. These fortresses have their own annual festivals on different dates in a year. And people love this. It's something really, really to look forward to. It's a grand celebration and then goes on for a few days. And this celebration is done with some great dance and music, of course. Here what you see are costume dancing. These are called masked dance. And in masked dances, they are dressed really elaborately. They play instruments as well as dance. And they're telling you stories from mythology. And all these masks represent characters from various mythological stories. Also, many of these characters that show up at these festivals or are portrayed in these festivals are also characters that a person is meant to meet after death, right? So before on the judgment day or whatever. So during festivals is your time to familiarize yourself with these people who you might meet in another world. And so that when you actually meet them, you don't feel scared of them. You're already familiarized with them. So these are some of the characters who perform, and then there are some who are just there for fun. They do no for performance, they do no singing or dancing, but they just mingle around, they go among the crowds and entertain them. It's just great to see people's reactions and how much fun they have and how much they look forward. And luckily, Harsha and I were able to attend a few of these festivals. It was just wonderful. Religion is really a big thing in Bhutan, and that's no secret. I think all of us know about it. Whoever know a little bit about Bhutan, and you see that in their day-to-day lives, in just everyday places. For example, here's a picture from the local market, and even there you'll see a little prayer flag sort of running across. And under this prayer flags in this picture, what you see in the gunny sacks are different ingredients that are used for religious rituals, like dried juniper and all the rest of it. From little things like this to large things, larger than life things like the tiger's nest, which almost has become a symbol of Bhutan or the identity of Bhutan, are all pointing towards the religious sentiments of this country. Tiger's nest is actually a Buddhist temple, which are called lakhangs, as written there. We've written it down there. And the tiger's nest is actually just one of many, many different Buddhist temples or lakhangs throughout the country. For Harsha and I know most of us who visit Bhutan, it's a
To-do thing.
It's a to-do thing.
Yeah.
It's an aim. It's a big wish. It's a bucket list for many people to go up to the tiger's nest. Of course it is, and it's wonderful. But for Harsha and I, we got multiple chances, right, of going up to tiger's nest, whether it was while we were guiding with Nat Hab or living there and showing friends and family who visited us. And when we were showing them around, we would definitely go up to the tiger's nest. And now it's almost more about the climb, the journey, than it is about actually reaching the temple. We really, really look forward to walking through the forested paths, with that long Spanish moss hanging, meeting people along the way and just exchanging greetings, people who are foreigners, people who are locals. It's just something we've really started to enjoy, and of course, looking for birds. It's just so wonderful for us to see. And when you come to Bhutan, there is a chance that you will also in some way experience the religious activities or some kind of ritual. When you're there, it usually happens, whether it's getting a blessing or witnessing an event.
Coming back to wilderness, look at this picture. We used to see this kind of scene when we traveled in Bhutan. Forest everywhere with little bit of small village or houses or a monastery in the middle of the forest. So Bhutan actually is the only country in the world which is carbon negative country, and 83% of the country is under forest cover, and they have designated out of this 51% of it as national parks. So that is large country, almost all part of country is under forest, which is very refreshing to know. And when we travel, it was like you take a turn. It's like a postcard picture. It's beautiful trees, the rhododendron you can see here, as it's part of the Himalayas. Bhutan has many different species of rhododendron. Or while traveling on the road, you'll see this blooming trees with beautiful Himalaya as a backdrop. And bird life was fantastic. But it's not easy to see wildlife.
Yeah.
Everything is in the valley. There are very fewer roads to reach from one village to other or small town. And whatever wildlife we see, it's a chance when it comes near the road.
Yeah.
But because we lived there, we traveled, we got to see some interesting birds. One of them, we might see this ibis bill, what you see in the picture. It's a very special bird. A lot of people, a lot of bird watchers come to look for it. And also in one of our Nat Hab trip, we may see them. And when we drive up on the mountains and cross the pass, sometimes we used to come across this beautiful pheasant called Himalayan monal. It's very iridescent, metallic, the plumage. It's like somebody has put a dummy thing to attract, but it's such a beautiful bird.
Yeah, it looks almost unreal.
Unreal, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Another big bird highlight or overall wildlife highlight in Bhutan are the black-necked cranes. So the black-necked cranes are a migratory species of crane. And as you all might know, the Himalayas run from the east to the west. And the cranes also migrate from between east and west. And one valley in Bhutan called the Pogjakar Valley is one of the black-necked crane's largest wintering grounds. In this particular valley, during winter months, you see large congregations of the black-necked cranes. They've come all the way from the west of the Himalayas up here in the east. And Harsha and I got a chance a couple of times to go to Gante, to this valley called the Pogjakar Valley. And it's wonderful to see that this crane is held in high regard by local people, as well as has some religious importance attached to it. In fact, one of the newest festivals, like all festivals in Bhutan are traditional, like the one we showed you pictures of. One of the newer festivals is the Crane Festival, where they actually celebrate the arrival of the crane.
Cranes, yeah.
And you see that sentiment even when you reach Pogjakar Valley. For example, in this valley, you see no high tension electric wires running across. All those are made underground so that the cranes have an obstruction-free landing when they arrive, and these cranes have an amazing, ritual of going round and round before they actually land. And they want this to be a danger-free, safe process for the cranes. And over here also, like you can see, there's a house behind, and the cranes are in such close proximity to people, but nobody bothers them. Once when we were visiting Pogjakar Valley, the cranes were just leaving. It was time for them to go to their summer breeding grounds back to the west. And there was one young crane who was injured and couldn't fly back with the rest of his flock. The people of Bhutan decided to look after it until the next year that this flock came back. This crane was named Karma. Karma the crane was now going to live in Pogjakar Valley throughout summer until the next winter. Now, as you know, these cranes especially, are flock birds. And they were worried that Karma would feel alone. So for his well-being or mental health, I guess, they put mirrors wherever in the enclosure that Karma was, so that he's used to company and feels like he has company of other cranes. And thus Karma was well looked after. And next year, when the cranes came back in the flock, they attempted, and I think successfully, if I remember rightly, to introduce him back to the flock so that he could resume normal life. Such are the people of Bhutan.
So another interesting, a special bird is the white-bellied heron. It's not a great shot here because this bird was very far away and it is very difficult bird to get. White-bellied heron, it's nesting on this tree and the bird looks like this. It's not a great shot. However, these birds are found only in the rivers of the Himalayas, fresh, fast-flowing rivers. Unlike other herons can be found in lakes and reservoirs and ponds, this prefers the habitat in the valley, in the fast-flowing rivers. And we came to know that there's a valley, and across the valley on the tree, the bird is nesting, and we went to look for it. And while we are watching, something interesting happened. A royal guard, head of the security of the royal family, he came in a bicycle, and our friend who was a local guide, he got very alert. He was literally got scared to see a royal security coming here. He came and checked, and he asked, "Are you watching those birds?" And he said, "Okay." He checked, "Where are we from?" And he went away. And in few minutes, that road was narrow in the forest, no traffic. And in the turning, we saw one of the royal prince walking down towards us. You know, he was the cousin of the present king, but from a royal family. He walked down straight to us and asked, "Did we see the bird?" He knew about the white-bellied heron nesting there, and it recently the chicks had grown up. He knew about the bird, the status of the bird, highly endangered. The fantastic thing was, one of the prince came and spoke to us. You know, it was like that. It's a great experience to meet him. We wanted to take a picture, but he said he can't do that. But
really nice of him. So humble
to come and meet us. So this white-bellied heron, as here there is some facts. very few left in the world, and very few location in Bhutan, India, and little bit of neighboring countries. And there's a big challenge for Bhutan, because Bhutan wants to be a carbon neutral country and to protect all its wildlife. And these herons are found in these river valleys. uh, and Bhutan's main national income is to produce hydroelectricity to supply the power generated by this hydroelectric plant to India. And to generate so much electricity, they have to dam the river, which will affect the white-bellied heron. But there are 1-2 rivers which are called virgin rivers because there are no dams. So it's a big challenge for a small country which wants to develop and also to protect its endangered species. Yeah.
Absolutely true. So besides the species and the stories that we actually encountered, one of the stories that we didn't encounter but heard of was about this tiger. So this tiger is the first time ever record in the world which was found in snowline. This tiger's photograph, this is not our picture, it was taken on a camera trap and was seen at a record height of 13,000 feet. This had happened just before we went to Bhutan to live, but it was really such a buzz around in the country while we were there amongst wildlife circles. And in fact, just after we left the country to come back to India, there was yet another record set at an even higher altitude of nearly 15,000 feet, where pug marks and tracks and signs of a tiger were seen. Really, it was just amazing. So many things and so many stories, and these are just a few that we are sharing with you. When we speak of our travels and looking for wildlife in the country, we cannot miss this story. So this was the time when we were going to the south center of the country, which is going to a warmer, lower hill area. And we reached late at night at this place called Tingtibi, and it was really dark. There was no place to stay, and we found this one small guest house which had one room available for us. And we said, okay, all we need is a clean bed and a clean bath, and we anyway want to wake up early in the morning and leave. So we took up the deal. It was 400 rupees for the night. That's less than $5 for that night. And we went to bed all tired, woke up in the morning to this view. I couldn't imagine. This was more than worth the price. I mean, I don't even know what real estate in a place like this would cost, but it was just so amazing. And overall, that trip was a really fantastic one. We had some really good highlights. Like the one you see, the bird to the left is a wreathed hornbill, quite an uncommon hornbill to see. We had capped langurs, which are a speciality of low hills of the Himalayas in the east. And we had the amazing mountain goats, extremely well camouflaged mountain goat called the goral. It was just, these are just a few of the many experiences that we had during our time in Bhutan, and we're just so excited and happy to be able to share a few.
Yeah, and during our stay, there were some interesting big events. The football or the soccer, as it's one of the favorite games of Bhutanese. When we were there was selection for FIFA World Cup. Before the World Cup, there was selection happening. So the match was between Bhutan and Sri Lanka, and the match was held in Thimphu, the capital where we were, at 7,000 feet high. And when we heard, we thought Bhutanese will win, because poor Sri Lankans, they're coming from sea level to 7,000 feet. They may not have chance. And again, that day was declared a holiday because it was happening in the capital and the king was going to witness the match. And Payal was ready to work with her colleagues and making some trips and plans. And there you go, holiday was declared and everybody went to the stadium. We also went. We couldn't get in because so crowded. But like we predicted, that day Bhutanese won, and it was a big celebration, and everybody partied.
Yeah, absolutely. Another big event during our stay there was really one that, again, the entire country celebrated, was the birth of the first prince of the country. And really, it was just so nice to be in the country when this happened, and to be a part of the joy of this country. Here, what you see in the photographs are a year-by-year transition till the prince became 2 years old. He must be a lot older now. This was 2016 that he was born. And yeah, just one of the many memorable moments while we were in Bhutan.
Yeah, and again, holiday was declared. And
Yes.
few days later, a few weeks later, a few months later, the previous king's birthday came, and he decided to meet
And celebrate
his birthday with the public. So instead of 1 day, 3 day holidays were declared at the last minute. So holiday after holidays. So I don't know how much work people did or we did, but there were a lot of celebrations.
Yeah, but it just made our stay in Bhutan just so amazing. Having said that, of all our memories, something that we treasure the most are the people we met and the friends we made. These are just a few in the photograph, and this was actually a lunch that we hosted right outside our house. So this is actually the view from the house. On the far left, the small gray road that you see is the road that goes up to the Takin preserve that Harsha was speaking about. And yeah, these are just few of the many people we met. In fact, most of these people even today are a part of ensuring a smooth running of Nat Hab trips, because they still work at the Bhutan office, our local office that we have there. And none of our trips would be possible without these wonderful people.
Some are the excellent guides we still go with when we take Nat Hab guests, who actually enrich our Nat Hab guest experience with their expertise. Yeah.
Yeah. And with this, I think we tried our best to share highlights of 2 years within a short time.
Yeah.
And we hope you enjoyed it. And we are open to questions, I think.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating, and I want to go even more now than I did before. Before we start the Q&A, I want to remind our listeners that they can submit questions via the questions field in your control panel. But we already have some wonderful questions. There were several that revolved around women's role in Bhutan. Can you expand on what you observed in that regard? And let me get more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah,
like,
sorry.
Can women participate in archery? Do women dance at festivals? Do girls participate in sports? So just a lot of interest in what is the women's role in society?
Great question. In this presentation, it may have appeared as if a lot of these outdoor activities are male driven, and whereas archery, dart are definitely male sports. But in New Bhutan, we also have women football teams where young girls are have a football team and they're learning to play the sport. Otherwise, in day-to-day rural Bhutan, women actually have an almost equal status, and that's what we feel. Again, like I said, earlier, it's a very limited, narrow view of our short experience there, but you see them out in the fields, you see them working. If you visit shops or places or restaurants in Bhutan, they're either owned or run, or you'll see women working there. As far as the royal family is concerned, it's very interesting. Again, the queens, all the queens are involved, take up and are involved in various projects, whether it's women empowerment or, environment or well-being of youth, mental health, just various different things they're involved in. So yeah, it's actually surprisingly quite equal.
Yeah, and for us coming from India, actually, if many of you travel many parts of India where it could be in cities or small towns, you would see largely men in India working in shops, restaurants, or you name it. But in Bhutan, it was opposite, or it was equal. So they didn't have, we didn't see any demarcation of saying, oh, women can't come and work here, or only men can work there. So we saw them, women everywhere, working and taking lead, except for archery.
Yeah, and maybe taxi driving.
Yeah.
That's probably one where we may not have seen women, or we did not see women. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So what is there's a lot of people like me who really want to go, and they want to know what's the best time to visit. And by chance, do you know if there will be a trip in April?
Yeah, I don't know about the trip in April. I don't know about it yet, but anything from February we feel is a fantastic time to visit Bhutan. I'll tell you why, because December and Jan were very cold for us, even while living in Bhutan, and our house would especially get very cold. But it is a cold month. But February onwards, it gets really wonderful. February, March, April are just fantastic months of travel. May is also actually quite good, but it starts to get a little bit warmer.
And rain.
And rain, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and Nat Hab trips are planned in such a way that they've chosen best time of the year.
Yeah.
And so this is related. Do you know if the restrictions still in place around the number of visitors that can travel to Bhutan and the amount of money that must be spent?
Yeah, so it's very interesting just to answer this question. So per se, there isn't a cap. The way Bhutan makes sure that there is not a huge inflow of tourists is by two measures. One is the cost, right, which is actually not extremely costly. When they say there is a $250 fee, it's actually not a fee. When a tourist is paying a 250 rupee fee per day of travel, they are actually, it is balanced against the stay, food, or the guide services, for example. So basically what Bhutan is ensuring is making sure that people with a spending capacity of at least $250 per day are the ones who are coming to the country. Basically, discouraging very backpacking type of travel or the other kind of travel. And the other way they restrict the number of people coming into Bhutan is by flights. Did you know that only 2 Bhutanese airlines fly into the country? No other international airlines fly into the country. So if you have 2 or 3 flights coming into country, only those many people per day maximum can enter the country. I hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yes. So diving into the monastic culture a bit, can you explain how children become monks? Does the family give the child to a monastery, or are there convents for girls, or what does that relationship look like?
Okay, we are not experts in this subject.
We can attempt.
But we'll attempt.
So what we learned from our guides and our colleagues are that as a tradition, even now, when you travel outside the city, you'll see these remote villages, and sometimes it's just 1 or 2 houses in the far away in the valley in the hill. And they used to have many children, and the tradition was to give one of the child to become a monk, so that they have the connection of monastic body within the family, so that he becomes a monk and comes back to the family to do rituals and help in
the
community and also in the incarnation. Schools were difficult those days. So the monastic body was the one in the monastery somebody could educate it. So they would train or choose one of the sons to go become a monk, and it still is followed. Whereas for women, there are nunneries. Yes, on the Nat Hab trip also, we visit one of the nunneries where we see the Buddhist nuns. in that place. Yeah, you would like to add?
Yeah, there, however, in the nunnery, we've not seen very, very small girls. We see slightly older women who are either there by choice or maybe because of hardships at home, because nunneries and monasteries are places where everything is taken care of. Your education, your food, your stay, and sometimes it's a great place if a family is in difficult conditions to let one of their childs go to one of the monasteries. And like I don't know about many other Buddhist countries, but it's not compulsory or extremely strict here. It is voluntary, and at some point, if an individual decides not to pursue being a monk or a nun, they can leave after a few rituals.
Yeah, they have to do certain rituals and feed a lot of monks and priests, perform more rituals, and then they can be come out of the monastery as a monk.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. What is the local language in Bhutan, and are you able to speak easily with the local people?
Great question. So the local language, there are lots of different dialects, but the most spoken language is called Dzongkha. Dzongkha literally translates to the language of the Dzong, or the language of the fortress. And this language is also made the official language of the country. That is the most spoken language, but besides that, like I said, there are lots of small local dialects. Other than that, there is some amount of Hindi, Nepali, and a lot of English is spoken. So when we went to Bhutan, we were actually looking forward to learning the language, and we also got a little book of translation from English to Dzongkha so that we could pick up the language, but we never went beyond a few words because all our colleagues and everyone who we interacted with spoke English. They spoke quite well.
Or Hindi, which the language in many parts of India they speak. So they were very happy to speak with that instead of Zonka. So we never picked up
the language.
It's not very easy though.
Yeah.
But yeah, we never learned.
Yeah.
So a couple of folks are wondering, how did you get to go and stay there? What were you doing there? And what is the typical stay of a tourist there? How long are you allowed to stay in general?
Great question. So the last I knew, of course, I don't know if there are some revisions after COVID and the country has been closed, but until we were there, you could stay for up to a month. We got to go there because I got a job in Bhutan at a local travel sort of ground handling, like we call it, like the destination management company. And the thing is that even so, when we went there as foreigners, right? And we could only be there for 2 years, right? So beyond that, the idea is that even if foreigners do come in and work in the country, they hope that they're coming there to train and employ and eventually hand over their jobs to local people, because employment is actually one of the challenges of modern Bhutan, with more and more youth getting well educated.
Yeah, so our job, especially Payal's job, was mainly to plan the trip for Nat Hab and others and hand over everything and to come back. We didn't have plans to stay because you can't. We wish we could stay. And I was in and out of Bhutan on a tourist visa because I used to come as a guide and go back to India or Sri Lanka to guide again, or to Nepal.
Yeah, in fact, as we speak right now, that the ground handling office that I was managing, there is a wonderful local Bhutanese lady now managing the ground office there. I'm actually really looking forward to going back and meeting her.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, it is the top of the hour, so I think that's all we have time for right now. But I will tell you that there's lots of questions we didn't get to cover, so we'll have to dive deeper into this another time. Clearly,
Sure.
Lots of interest and lots of folks really appreciating your passion and your personal stories. Thanks so much for sharing those with us. Do you have any closing comments before we officially close?
I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Nat Hab, for giving us an opportunity to present. And this particular presentation, we could dive down a memory lane. Really, honestly speaking, Harsha and I often discuss this is one of the main reasons why we love guiding in Bhutan. Because one is, of course, visiting the country, but also visiting it's always nostalgic going back. And thank you for you listeners, because without you, these webinars wouldn't happen and we wouldn't get to share these stories that we love talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Sunny, for hosting. And everyone, please keep an eye for more webinars coming. There will be one soon on Bhutan with more detailed Nat Hab itinerary, hopefully in few weeks.
Yeah.
All right. Okay.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks again. And thanks to everyone who tuned in today. Please join us tomorrow for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I'll conclude the webinar. Have a wonderful day, everyone.
Bye-bye, everybody.